All right, folks. Today's Tuesday, and we are going to begin this week by reviewing what we talked about last week and then kind of taking that one step further. Okay, so last week we started to talk about the slope of a line, and we learned that slope is steepness. So when we find the slope of a line, we are finding a number that will describe exactly how steep a line is. Now, what we did last week is we actually started out by finding slope on a graph. Now, when we're doing slope on a graph, I want you to remember that slope is represented by the letter M. And we learned this little definition. M is equal to rise over run. So slope is equal to rise over run. That is the definition that we need to remember when we want to find slope on a graph. We learned that the rise is, I don't want to use an arrow there. We learned that the rise can either go up or down. Those are the only two directions that rise is allowed to go. And that if rise goes up, it is a positive number, and that if rise goes down, it is a negative number. We learned that the run can go in two directions as well. It can go to the left or to the right, and then if run goes left, it's negative, and if it goes right, it's positive. So we rise before we run. We go up or down, and then we go across. Now, one of the other things that we also learned as a result of our work last week is that there are actually 4 types of slope. All right, those 4 types are positive, negative, 0, and undefined, which we abbreviated as UND. Now, a line that has a positive slope, let me kind of divide this up. A line that has a positive slope goes up. A line that has a negative slope goes downhill. A line that has 0 slope is flat. It's horizontal. And a line that has undefined slope goes up and down. It is vertical. So remember how we recalled that? U, N, D, undefined. The line goes up and down. So these last 2 kinds of slope ought to be the easiest for you because there's no counting involved. If you see that horizontal line, that flat line, it's automatically 0. And if you see your undefined slope, your up and down line, automatically up and down. So these are the things that we talked about first. Slope is steepness. On a graph, we use rise over run. Rise can go up or down. Run can go left or right. So we always move up or down first, and then left or right when we're doing slope. And here are the 4 types. Now, let's real quickly do some slope on a graph, just so you can recall how to do this. We will be having a quiz on this on Thursday. One of the things I want to remind you about, most of you did a really good job on this last week, but one of the things I want to remind you about is when you're doing slope on a graph, you need to pay attention to what direction you're going, because the direction determines if your answer is positive or negative. Now, if you look at the line on this graph, we can see that this line goes uphill. So I know, because I know the 4 types of slope, that this answer should be positive, that this line should have a positive slope. Now remember what I asked you to do. Always start at the point that is furthest to the left, the leftmost point, which would be this point right here. So I'm going to start right here. and I want to end right here. Okay, so starting from this point, how would I have to rise to get to this point? Okay, so would I have to go up or would I have to go down? And the answer is I would have to go up. So I'm going to draw a line straight up in red until I am level with that point. So I'm going up for my rise. Okay, now, how would I have to run to get to that end point? Well, starting from here, I would have to run to the right. So I'll draw that in blue. So I'm going up and to the right. Okay, so now let's get our numbers here. How much did I have to go up? Well, I had to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. So that was up 4. So I need to ask myself, if I went up 4, would that be a positive 4 or a negative 4? And the answer is because I went up, that would be a positive 4. Now, let's get our run. We're going to the right, we know that, but to the right how much? So starting from here, we're going to the right 1, 2 spaces. So we went up 4 and we went right 2. Well, if I'm going right 2, would that be positive 2 or negative 2? Right is positive, so that would be positive 2. So up 4, right 2 translates into a slope of 4 over 2. Now remember, we need to simplify this if we can. So this is where you would go to your Desmos calculator and you would type in 4 divided by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2, which is good, so the slope of this line is positive 2. Or, remember, if I want that as a fraction, I could make it 2 over 1. So rise 2, run 1. So the slope of this line is positive 2, which means, starting from here, that every time the line goes up 2 spaces, it goes to the right 1 space. Up 2, right 1. You'll notice each time I do what that says and go up 2 and right 1, I land on the line. All right, so that we did last week. And I would encourage you again, this is so important. This is where people usually miss these. Make sure you pay attention to direction. All right, here's another graph. To find the slope, we're going to do rise over run. All right. So first thing I notice is that this line is headed downhill. So whatever this answer turns out to be, I know it should be negative. I should have a negative slope this time. So I'm going to begin over here at my leftmost point. So this is going to be the start, and this is going to be the end. And I'm going to rise over run. So from this point, from the starting point, if I want to get to that ending point over there, I see that I have to go down. So this time my rise is going to be down. And then my run is going to be to the right. So I'm going down and right. Okay. So now, let's get this figured out. So starting from here, I'm going down how many spaces? It's down 1, 2, 3. So since I'm going down 3, that's going to make that a negative 3. Down is a negative direction. Then I'm going to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4. So right 4. Right is a positive direction, so that's going to be a positive 4. So down 3, right 4. Now this is the point where we would go to Desmos and type in negative 3 divided by 4. When you do that, you're going to get negative 0.75. Remember, we want a fraction. So when that happens, remember on your Desmos calculator, you've got that little circle that has that fraction inside of it. So you'll press that to get the decimal to change back into a fraction, and notice that he goes right back to negative 3/4, which means that that slope won't reduce. So the slope for this line is negative 3/4. And what that means is that it rises negative 3 and runs positive 4. So if I start here, I go down 3, right 4, and I land on the line. So negative 3/4. All right. On this next one, notice that I see a horizontal line. So on this one, don't have a lot of work to do. The slope on this one should be 0. Horizontal line, the slope is 0. And then for this last one, notice we have our vertical line, which is going up and down. So your slope on this one should be U, N, D, undefined. So like I said, we will quiz on that on Thursday. You all did a good job with it in class last week. The only thing that happened to some of you is you made all your numbers positive. So you didn't take the time to think about whether it should be a positive or a negative. So I want you to work on that a little bit and make sure that you're ready. Okay, so that's a review of what we had done last week. All right, now what we're ready to do, and my B-Day folks, you've already done this. The A-Day folks haven't seen it yet, so we're all going to get back together today and get everybody back on the same track. We're going to look at another way to find slope. So we're not going to be on a graph today. Today we are going to be finding slope from ordered pairs. Slope from ordered pairs. And I want to take just a moment here to remind you about ordered pairs. All right, an ordered pair, you know, will come to you wrapped in parentheses. It will contain two numbers, and those numbers will be separated by a comma. The first number is always your x, and your second number is the y. So these are the kinds of pairs we're going to be working with today. X, Y pairs. And we're going to be finding slope using those. Now, remember on the graph, that m was equal to, slope was equal to rise over run. When you are dealing with slope from ordered pairs, we're going to deal with a new definition of m. So write this down for me and make sure you memorize it. When you're dealing with ordered pairs, m is equal to this. Y minus y over x minus x. Y minus y over x minus x. So I want you to compare what we did on the graph to what we are now going to be doing today with our ordered pairs. I want you to notice how these are similar. Both of these start out with m equals. Slope is equal to. So they have that in common. But what I want you to notice is the difference here, okay? And we're still dealing with a fraction here. So we still have that fraction bar in the middle of this definition. Now what you'll notice this time is that rise has been replaced with y minus y. Now I want to talk to you about why that makes sense. You're going to rise with the y's. Rise could go up or down. And if you think about a graph, the axis that goes up and down is the y-axis. So rise is associated with y. Rise is up or down, y goes up and down. So y minus y. Notice in the bottom, we've got, whoops, I wanted a highlighter, not a pen. Well, I did it again. Let's see if I can get it right this time. All right, so your run, you've got your x's in the bottom. Why does run have to do with x? Well, what we know is run can go either left or right, and that's what the x-axis does. So when you're on a graph, rise over run, when you have ordered pairs, x-y pairs, do y minus y over x minus x. All right, so let me show you some examples here. On all of these, we're going to find slope. All right, let's say I give you negative 2, 3, and 4, 5. So negative 2, 3, and 4, 5 as your ordered pairs. Because you have ordered pairs, you're going to do y minus y over x minus x. Now I want you to remember, in this ordered pair, and I don't think it's a bad idea to label, this would be x, y, this would be x, y. So when this says to do y minus y, the first thing I need to do is get my y values. So my y values are 3 and 5. So I'm going to do y minus y. I'm going to do 3 minus 5. Okay, so next up, I see that I've got x minus x. Well, my x's are negative 2 and 4. So I'm going to do x minus x. That means negative 2 minus 4. So y minus y, 3 minus 5, over x minus x, negative 2 minus 4. Now we do the math. 3 minus 5 is a negative 2. Negative 2 minus 4 is a negative 6. So right now, here's what we have. We have m equal to negative 2 over negative 6. And now this becomes just like our graphing problems. You need to put this into Desmos. So you're going to type in negative 2 divided by negative 6. So all of this over here is happening on your calculator. Okay, when you do negative 2 divided by negative 6, you get 0.3 repeating. And because that's a decimal, you will press that little circle that has the fraction inside of it, and that should come out to be 1 over 3. So this slope is a positive 1/3. This slope is a positive 1 over 3, meaning that every time the line rises 1 space, it goes to the right 3 spaces. So it goes up 1, right 3. But notice how we're doing this. We're using this formula with the numbers instead of actually putting it on a graph and counting it. But keep in mind here, because you have these ordered pairs, you could graph them. As a matter of fact, that's how we started this. You'll remember I gave you that graph paper and in class, and we plotted the points, and then we counted the rise and the run, and we got the slope. So this is just another way to do the same thing. All right, let's try this one. Let's say your points are 2, 4, and negative 1, negative 5. Let's label first. This would be x, y, x, y. And because I have ordered pairs, I'm going to go with y minus y over x minus x. All right, so here we go. On the top, we want to do y minus y. My y values are 4 and negative 5. So I'm going to subtract y minus y. So I'm going to do 4 minus a negative 5. Always we're subtracting. So it's 4 minus a negative 5. Okay, so next up, we want x minus x. Our x's are 2 and negative 1. So we're going to subtract those two. So it's going to be 2 minus a negative 1. Now it's really important here, I cannot stress this enough on this problem, it's really important here that you get both of these signs. The minus comes from the formula, and this negative comes with the 5. This minus comes from the formula, and this negative comes with the 1. So you need both of those. You need the subtraction sign that is in the formula and the negative sign that comes with that number. I hope that makes sense. All right, so now let's work this out. 4 minus a negative 5 is 9, because we know that minus and negative changes to plus. 2 minus a negative 1 is 3, so I have a slope of 9 over 3. At this point, I will type into my calculator 9 divided by 3, which will give me 3, which is a fine answer. So I get m is equal to 3. Remember, that would be the same thing as 3 over 1. So 3 or 3 over 1 would be the slope of this line. So this is all a matter of plugging the numbers into the formula and plugging them into the right places. And then the rest of it is just a little subtraction and a little simplifying. All right. Next up, let's do negative 3, 3 and 5, negative 1. Label x, y, x, y. Since these are ordered pairs, we're going to do y minus y over x minus x. All right, so we start out in our formula with y minus y. We have 3 and negative 1 as our y values. So remember, we are going to subtract. We are going to do 3 minus a negative 1. You need both of those signs. The minus comes from the formula, the negative comes along with the 1. All right, next up, we want x minus x. We've got negative 3 and 5 as our x's, and we're going to subtract. So we're going to do negative 3 minus 5. You'll notice on all of these, I am working left to right. Left to right, so I did 3 minus negative 1, and then negative 3 minus 5. You may also work right to left, but the important thing is that you go in the same direction every single time. All right, so here we go. Let's work this out. 3 minus negative 1 is 4. Negative 3 minus 5 is a negative 8. So I have 4 over negative 8. I will type into my calculator 4 divided by negative 8, which will give me negative 0.5. I don't want a decimal, so I'll press my little fraction button, which will turn that into a negative 1/2. So my slope on this one is a negative 1/2. All right, let's go with 0, 7, and 2, 3. X, Y, X, Y. We have ordered pairs, so we're going to do y minus y over x minus x. All right, start with y minus y. 7 and 3 are your y values. So you're going to do 7 minus 3. X minus x. 0 minus 2. Seven minus 3, 0 minus 2. All right, for 7 minus 3, we get 4. For 0 minus 2, we get a negative 2. At this point, we're going to type into the calculator 4 divided by negative 2, which is negative 2. So negative 2 is my answer, which remember is the same thing as negative 2 over 1. So the slope for this line would be negative 2 or negative 2 over 1. All right, let's do just a couple more problems. I got 2 more I want to show you. So for this next one, let's do 3, 1 and negative 2, 1. X, y, x, y. We're doing y minus y over x minus x with these ordered pairs. All right, so let's start out up top. y minus y. We're going to be doing 1 minus 1. Always subtracting the two numbers. All right, now on the bottom, x minus x, we're going to do 3 minus negative 2. Now notice it's a negative number here. So we're going to do 3 minus negative 2. 3 minus negative 2. Minus from the formula, negative from the 2. All right, now when we work this out, on the top, 1 minus 1 is 0. On the bottom, 3 minus negative 2 is going to be 5. You will then type into your calculator 0 divided by 5. The answer comes out to be 0. So the slope of this line would be 0. So remember, that means that this would be one of those flat horizontal lines. Okay, one last problem. Let's do negative 2, 3 and negative 2, negative 5. X, y, x, y. All right, so we're going to do y minus y first, which amounts to 3 minus negative 5. So be careful right here, 3 minus negative 5. Then moving down to the bottom, we're going to do x minus x, which is negative 2 minus negative 2. Now, a little subtracting here. 3 minus negative 5 is going to be 8. Negative 2 minus negative 2 is going to be 0. So we have 8 over 0. Type 8 divided by 0 into your calculator, and he will tell you that that is undefined. So the slope on this one is undefined, which means that this would be one of those up and down lines. So it would be vertical. All right, so you know two ways now to find slope. If you have the graph in front of you, rise over run. If you have ordered pairs given to you, y minus y over x minus x. Now, you B-Day folks, you did this on Friday last week. And the only mistake I saw when I graded papers is that some of you had done these upside down. You were putting the x's on top and the y's on the bottom. So make sure today that it's y's on the top, x's on the bottom. Really be careful with that. If you have any questions at all about this lesson, if there's anything about it that does not make sense, then please contact me with those questions. I will be checking my emails often. So let me know. Quiz on Thursday will be only on finding slope on a graph, so just rise over run.